Okay, we're going to start looking at the length of the chords. Now, a chord, let me explain what a chord is. Let's assume we have a circle. Let's call this a circle. A chord, it's a segment, it's a line segment that goes from one end of the circle to the other end. That's a chord. One chord you guys are familiar with, it's the one that goes through the center, right? It has a specific name, diameter, but it is still a chord. So chord are those that connect one end of a circle to the other end. It doesn't have to go through the center. If it goes through the center, then we call it diameter, but we're just looking at all type of chords. So let's take a look. We're going to start looking at the length. The interesting part is that once we have two chords, they cut each other into two parts, not necessarily in the middle. If I had a chord in a diameter, then yeah, the diameter will cut the chord in half. Okay, so let's see what I just said. We have a circle, and then let's say I had a diameter, right? It's a chord that goes through the center, and another chord, then yeah, the other chord was cut in half, only if one of my two chords is a diameter. Otherwise, it's not necessarily cut in half. What I'm going to be doing, let's take a look at one of my chords. The measurements are 18 and X. What I'm going to be doing, let me multiply those two measurements. So let me go 18 times X equals. Now looking at the other chord, my measurements are 26 and 16. So let me multiply 27 times 16. Okay, so that gives me that 18X is equal to 432. Right, use a calculator if you need to. Now let me divide both sides by 18. And I get that X is equal to 24. My instructions were solve for X, right? Find the missing side. There you go. Now, I said missing side, so that means that sometimes in your homework, I might not call it X. I just might leave it blank, like number 16. And then I'm going to ask, find the missing side. What I expect you guys to do is call that missing side X. And then you're going to say, all right, well, one of my chords is X times 10. So that gives me 10X. The other chord is 6 times 15. So that gives me 90. Let me divide both sides by 10. So X is equal to 9. The important thing here, though, is that X was the missing side. Right? I could call it X to begin with, or I could just ask you, find the missing side. Now let's take a look at number 17. Find the measure of the line segment indicated. Assume the lines which appear tangent are actually tangent. And here we have to find the side SD. SD, if you notice, is this. What I know about SD is 2 times X minus 8. Okay, so it would be nice if I knew what X was, because it's 2 times X minus 8. So what I'm going to be doing, this side, this chord, I'm going to multiply 24 times 2X minus 8. On the other chord, I'm going to multiply 21 times 16. Right, use a calculator if you need to. On the left side, so 24 times 2x, right? I'm thinking 24 times 2, that's 48. So 24 times 2x is going to give me 48x. Then there's a minus sign. 24 times 8, that's 192. I'm going to think 192 equals 21 times 16 is 336. All right, let me separate my sides through the equal side. Trying to get the 48x by itself. So this minus 182 Let me move it to the other side as a plus 192. So I get that 48x equals 528. Right, 336 plus 192. That's where I got the 528. Okay, now let me divide both of these by 48. So x happens to be 11. Now let me reread the instructions. Find the measure of the line segment. All right, the instructions are not solve for x. And remember I said earlier, SD is 2 times x minus 8. So I solved for x to be able to answer this question. So I'm going to go 2 times 11 minus 8. Because now I know x equals 11. Now I know 2 times 11 is 22. And 22 minus 8 happens to be 14. So that's my answer. Let's take a look at number 18. So I'm going to say my first chord, I'm going to multiply the measurement 6 times 6x plus 2. All right, so let me write that down. 6 times 6x plus 2 equals, because of the other chord, I'm going to multiply 7 times 12. So 7 times 12. Okay, for the 6, let me distribute the 6. So that's going to give me 36x plus 12 equals, I know 7 times 12 is 84. Okay, and let me separate them the sides to the equal sign. I want the 36x by itself, so this plus 12. Let me move it over as a minus 12. So 36x is equal to 72. Right, 84 minus 12 is 72. Now let me divide by 36. 72 divided by 36 is 2. So x equals 2. Now let me go back to the instructions. It says find QS, the measurement QS. So from Q all the way to S, that is all this chord. One part of the chord is 6x plus 2, right? So let me just see this as 6 times 2 plus 2. Because again, now I know x equals 2. 6 times x plus 2. That is one part of the chord. That's the segment SU. The segment UQ is 6. So I have to figure all this out. I see operations as multiplications and additions, and I know multiplication comes before addition. So let me multiply first. There's a 6 times 2. So let me call this 12 plus 2 plus 6. Addition is the last thing that I do. All right, now let me add. 12 plus 2 is 14, plus 6 is 20. Now let's take a look at this other one. Question number 19. Okay. One of my chords, the measurement are x minus 6 and x minus 1. So I'm going to go x minus 6 times x minus 1 equals, the other chord is 6 times 6. Remember, I multiply the two sides of a chord and equals the multiplication of the two sides of the other chord. Okay. Now here, I remember back in Algebra 1, right, we learned how to multiply these. They call it polynomial. First, I have to distribute the x. I'm going to go x times x and x times negative 1. So it's going to give me x squared minus 1x. Then let me distribute the negative 6. So negative 6 times x and negative 6 times a negative 1. That's going to give me negative 6x plus 6. And then this is all going to equal to 36, right? 6 times 6. That's where I got the 36. Okay. On the left side, let me combine my like terms. Let me call this x squared minus 7x plus 6 equals 36. Now the minus 7x comes from here. A -1 and a -6. I combine my like terms, so that gives me a -7. Back in Algebra 1, you guys learn how to solve this. I want the right side equal to 0. So this positive 36, let me move this as a -36. So that's going to give me x squared minus 7x minus 30. It's equal to 0. Back in Algebra 1, you guys learned how to factor these. Let me recall how to factor this when the first number is a 1, right? The one in front of the x squared. I'm thinking I want to do a diamond. They call it a diamond. Sometimes I call it an X thing. I'm looking for two numbers that when I multiply my numbers is -30. You guys see where I got the -30 from? Okay, so I'm thinking of two numbers multiplied equals -30, but when I add my numbers is a -7. Okay, so because I'm multiplying and it goes negative, my signs are different. All right, so start thinking. So I'm gonna write my 30 here. Start thinking of factors of 30. What I'm going to do, I'm gonna say, all right, 1 times 30. Factors of 30 basically means all the numbers that multiplied equals 30. All the multiplications that can equal to 30. 1 times 30. If I subtract these two numbers, doesn't equal to 7. Okay, so I'm not gonna do that. 2 times 15. 15 minus 2 is not 7. Okay, so I don't do that. 3 times 10. Yeah, 10 minus 3 is 7. Okay, so cool. So I'm gonna call this positive 3, -10. All right, I kept on saying subtract. Initially, I said I'm looking for two numbers that when I add them is equal to -7, but then I kept on saying subtract. These two numbers will subtract and equal 7. The reason why was because when you add numbers with different signs, you're basically subtracting the values. Okay. Now, one thing I want to remind you guys of factoring. Notice on my list on the left, I started with 1, then 2, then 3. Then I will continue until something works, right? 4, 5, 6, as far as I need to go. Okay. So now here we have x plus 3 and x minus 10 have two parentheses equal to 0, right? You guys remember factoring back from Algebra 1. Now, some of you might be wondering, well, what is this? Multiply them, and you were going to get x squared minus 7x minus 30, right? I'm not going to do it, but that is basically what you get, okay? I just factor it. Okay, so I wanted to do two things, so multiplied equals that. Then why is that? Because in multiplication, when two things are being multiplied and the result is equal to 0, you guys see that? One of my parentheses has to equal to 0. So my focus is on my first parentheses, x plus 3. What value of x can I put in there to make that parentheses 0? Right, let me think of a wrong answer. Let x equals 1. 1 plus 3? No, that doesn't work. Okay, what value of x can I put in there to make that parentheses equal to 0? Then I'm going to say -3. Okay, yeah, because -3 plus 3, yep, it is 0. Then I'm thinking, what value of x, on my second parentheses, what value of x can I use to make the entire parentheses equal to 0, right? X minus 10 equals 0. So I'm going to say, well, how about 10? X equals 10. Now, I have two possible solutions. I have x. Let me write this at the side. X is either -3 or x is equal to +10. Let me focus on just this segment. The -3 makes no sense, right? -3 minus 1 is -4. The length of a segment cannot be negative, so the -3 makes no sense. right? I said I have two possible solutions, right? The negative doesn't make sense. So x in this case is going to be 10. Okay. I've solved for x. Now let me read the instructions. I'm solving for the measurement RT. RT is this whole chord, right? I go from R all the way to T. So I have to add x minus 1, which I call 9, because I know x equals 10, right? So x minus 1 is 9. And then I have to add this other part, which I call 4. So one part of my chord is 9, the other part is 4. I'm going to say all combined happens to be 13, right? 9 and 4 combined, so 9 plus 4 equals 13. All right, so let's do question number 20. My first chord, I'm going to be thinking these two parts. I'm going to multiply 2x times x plus 4. My other chord, I'm thinking 8 times 15. Okay, so I have, let me distribute the 2x. So that gives me 2x squared plus 8x. Now, 8 times 15 is 120. Okay, I want the right side equal to 0. So my plus 120, let me move it over. So I have 2x squared plus 8x minus 120 is equal to 0. Okay, I need my first number to be a 1, and it's not a 1. It's a 2. Let me divide everything. Everything. I'm going to divide it by 2, because 2 divided by 2 is going to give me 1. So it's going to give me x squared plus 4x minus 60 is equal to 0, right? 0 divided by 2 is still 0. Okay, so now when it comes to factoring, remember, factoring, I'm looking at this thing right here. I'm looking at two numbers that multiplied equals negative 60, but when I add my numbers is 4. Because they multiplied equals a negative, my signs are opposite. So start thinking at the side. Okay, what numbers multiplied equals to 60? Let me use this right here. I'm going to erase that in a minute. So I go 1 times 60. If I subtract those, it's not 4. All right, 2 times 30. That one doesn't work either, because if I subtract those, it's not equal to 4. 3 times 20. It doesn't work still. So I gotta continue. Remember I said on the list on the left, I go 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way as I need to. All right, 4 times what? 4 times 15. That one doesn't work either. How about 5? 5 times 12. Doesn't work. 6 times 10. Okay, this one works. Because 10 and 6, when I subtract them, is equal to 4. So it is positive. So the big number is positive here. So I'm going to have positive 10, negative 6. Let me erase this. I said I was going to erase this. Let me erase this really quick. Okay, so I'm going to write x plus 10 times x minus 6 is equal to 0. You guys, again, you guys see where the plus 10 and the minus 6 come from. Looking at the first parentheses, I'm going to say my x has to equal to negative 10. I'm thinking, what value of x will make the first parentheses equal to 0? Negative 10 plus 10. Okay. The second parentheses, I'm going to say x is equal to 6. So I have two possible solutions. But think about the negative. Can x be negative? Because here, 2 times x. Can a side be negative? No. So negative 10 doesn't make sense. Now, let's see. What am I solving for here? Which side am I solving for? It says find PC. So I'm just connecting from P to C. So I'm just looking at x plus 4. I know x equals 6. So x plus 4 will equal to 10. Let me zoom out so you guys can see what we did.